In order to play 100% of In Woods, I have to survive a huge army of undead, get hit 10,000 times, defeat a massive swarm of giant snails, and make the most broken builds imaginable and become an unstoppable god. I'll be unlocking every character, item, level, ability until I'm able to destroy anything, even the game itself. Welcome to 100% of In Woods. We began with character selection. The knight was the only class available at the start. I needed to complete challenges to unlock the rest. After picking a level, I spawned in a forest. The first thing I did was chop a tree to get wood. It will be important later. Snakes began closing in. I swung my sword and threw projectiles at them. Slowly, they started to accumulate. I was getting cornered, but after slaying enough of them, I leveled up. For my first upgrade, I went with the magic bag to increase my pickup area. Things started simple, just swinging at the snakes. Leveling up once more, I chose a crossbow to shoot arrows for every melee attack. Then, instead of only snakes, snails started to come after me. This is where I realized that my ranged attacks stunned the creatures for a brief moment, although the sword did much more damage. Things were quite peaceful for the most part, until a weird dinosaur rushed in, and not just one or two or even three, they kept coming. It was almost impossible to avoid them. I was too slow, and the quantity of snails was getting out of hand too. Thankfully, I hit level 7 where I chose a health potion. Then I opened the chest. Here I could choose an artifact, which was more powerful than the normal magic items. I took the air orb. Now every melee attack would create a wind attack forward, dealing damage in an area. But that's not all. I could also craft items. This is where wood came into play. I totally forgot to cut trees, so there were a lot of items I couldn't afford. I ended up crafting a dagger for more attack speed. My swings were insane now, launching huge wind attacks. I leveled up almost instantly. I picked up the shuriken. As my attacks began to scale, I found myself against a huge golem of sorts, or whatever that is. It didn't matter how many air swings I launched at it. It didn't go down. It was a tank. I found myself cornered at the edge of the map when a second golem joined. Now birds were joining the fight. They were the fastest of them all, except for the dinosaur, of course. That was insane. Thankfully, they were easy to take down. A bigger one appeared, but when defeating it, it spawned a chest. I was able to choose a second artifact. I went with the action mirror. It let me copy an instance of every attack backwards. For crafting, now I had lots of wood available. I made a gem box. Things were calm again. All of a sudden, I took advantage of this and started chopping as many trees as I could. The peace didn't last long. Higher tier snails started to spawn. They had a different color, stronger than the others. My new backward attack came in handy. They were everywhere, and soon enough, the birds also made a comeback. Then, the new golems. Even the snakes were able to withstand more hits. The monsters kept evolving. The snails were now red, a new tier. But then, a humongous golem appeared. It didn't wanna go down. The small ones were pretty resilient, but this one was insane. At one point, it finally exploded, spawning a chest. But at the same time, multiple dinosaurs came out of nowhere. Plus, a new creature that looked like a rabbit. It was pure chaos. Enemies jumping at me from all sides. I managed to open the chest the golem dropped, getting my third artifact. This time, I got twin daggers, increasing my damage, speed, and critical chance. I also had 800 pieces of wood to use in crafting. I picked up the spinning top, so every attack would discharge 2 fireballs, and also crafted poison, followed by multiple items to increase damage and attack speed. My swings were insane now, so fast. I was destroying everything. I focused on evading the dinosaurs the best I could, but as I was getting stronger, the enemies got more aggressive. They ended up hitting me, multiple times in fact. It became overwhelming, until I was on the verge of dying. One more hit and I was dead. A small collision and the run was over. I did my best to avoid every single enemy, letting my passive healing do its thing. The numbers on screen were nuts. I was having trouble navigating between the monsters. I was being thrown like a pinball. The dinosaurs hit me from all angles. Just when I thought it couldn't keep getting worse, a huge T-Rex appeared. But soon after, I reached level 30, and I completed the level, my first victory, getting a new survivor rank, unlocking tons of new items. And by now, I had unlocked 8 out of 60 achievements. Here, I realized I could upgrade my characters. There were 3 tabs: offensive, defensive, and others. There were tons of different things to specialize in. To increase them, it required gold coins. I seem to have earned some in the level I completed. I decided to upgrade the more coin drops stat, seemed like the smartest idea. I maxed it out to level 5. I also got some levels in experience gain and health recovery. There was also an option to reset and refund upgrades if I wanted to, but I was okay with this setup. Exploring the menu, I saw a section called Monster Card that was locked. I needed to discover monster cards in hyper variant mode. More on that later. At this point, I could unlock a lot of characters. I got the Archer, the Spearman, and the Brute Fighter. I tried the Archer first. Checking the level selection, I managed to get all stars for Greenfield. That seemed to have unlocked the hyper variant mode. Checking it out, it seemed to activate a random enemy enhancement every 2 minutes. Plus, enemies had a chance of dropping a card. I'll give it a try later. For now, I went to Skeleland, the new level I had unlocked. The place was full of bones on the ground, and skeletons were coming up to me. My left click was a swing with my bow, but the arrows dealt much more damage. I was already liking it better than the knight character. I focused on increasing critical chance for my projectiles. I also noticed there were jars I could break, which dropped gold coins. At level 3, I picked Ornate Feather, which increased projectile range and movement speed by 50%. Slowly, the skeletons started to group up and increase their numbers. I noticed there were new items to pick. At level 4, for example, I chose Coin Pot, which gave me 1 coin every 5 seconds. I focused on breaking as many jars as possible to collect some more money, but I started getting surrounded by skeletons and was running low on health. Thankfully, I got a passive ability that slowly increased my health over time. At level 5, I chose Bullet, which made my projectiles penetrate enemies. Then cobras started to appear. At level 6, I increased my physical damage with the bow, but things escalated. Ranged units started responding with crossbows, so I had to avoid their bolts as well. It was getting intense. And then a much larger skeleton appeared. When I killed it, tons of coin exploded from it. I was cornered. I got greedy and tried picking up the gold, dying in the process. It was my first loss. Back to level selection, it seemed I survived for 5 minutes on my first attempt and managed to kill the first boss, probably that big skeleton. Now it was time for round 2. I first focused on breaking jars, grabbing coins, and shooting at the skeletons. If I managed to get enough money, I could buy more passive upgrades in the future and make it easier for me to advance. I got so surrounded that I took several hits and dropped to 0 health. But somehow I survived. The difficulty was ramping up quite quickly. Then the ranged skeletons appeared, shooting at me. But that's not all. A new enemy showed up. It looked like a small floating ghost, a specter chasing me. It was fast, and there were multiple of them. After killing the skeleton boss once again, I took my time. Didn't want to rush in and get killed again. This time, I managed to grab the coins scattered across the ground, also opening the chest. I selected my first artifact, the cannon, which allowed my projectiles to penetrate 4 enemies. I had completely forgotten to cut the trees, so I didn't have any wood to craft items. Now, things changed drastically, with my arrows going through multiple enemies and dealing elemental damage sped things up a lot. More and more hooded figures were chasing me. Then a second boss spawned. It looked like them, not a skeleton. It exploded upon death too. Right after, magical bats. They threw some sort of orb projectiles at me. I was really squishy, so I focused on evading everything. I managed to get the coins from the boss and open another chest, getting an artifact. I chose increased poison attack. Again, I had no wood to spend, but now I was surrounded by an aura that damaged enemies when they got close. Between the cobras, hooded figures, bats, it was nearly impossible to not run into something. This time, I made sure to not repeat the same mistake. I aimed at the trees whenever I could. It was quite difficult, doing that while fighting the monsters. I managed to kill another boss, unlocking more artifacts. This time, I was finally able to craft a few things, dealing more damage to enemies from a distance. Then came a new skeleton type, some sort of necromancer, launching laser spells. They were really hard to avoid, and soon tons of them were grouping up. They became insane. Lasers were coming from all directions. It was impossible to survive. I died. My mistake was not improving my walking speed and having so little health. At least I had some gold coins to spend. I used them to get experience gain to the max level. Before starting the next run, I want to thank Inwoods for sponsoring this video. I had a really great time with this game, and right now it's sitting at very positive reviews. Be sure to check it out and download it using the link below. You'll have a great time with it. One of the achievements I needed to complete was to win the game with every character, so I chose the Archer again. I only needed to unlock one more star for the skeleton level. It involved killing the final boss. For this run, I focused on getting my health points up. I managed to have almost 200. I also focus on boosting my damage. For example, the monsters were getting frozen because I had upgraded my ice damage. I also worked on increasing my walk speed. I was moving much faster than in the last run, but despite all of my efforts, the monsters annihilated me. I died again. Back to the menu, I used some of my coins to increase my maximum health and defense. It was time to change things up. The Archer had really low health, low defense and poor health recovery. It wasn't the best choice for that level. I decided to switch characters. This time, I went with the new one, the Brute Fighter. His secondary attack was a throwable rock. It was really slow, but it stunned enemies and dealt massive damage. Despite the slower pace, I found this character much more manageable. Being able to stun everything was huge. Plus, the large health pool helped a lot. Making mistakes wasn't nearly as risky. It was also really satisfying. Once I unlocked the air orb, everything changed. I started leveling up like crazy. I was no longer restricted by the short range of my melee attack. I felt unstoppable. Destroying trees was also way easier compared to the Archer. I was also already gathering resources comfortably. Definitely my favorite character so far. My attack speed was scaling fast. I even earned an achievement for hitting a monster with every elemental effect. My damage output was through the roof. Then, the skeleton wizards arrived with those awful dark lasers they shot. Fortunately, this time, they didn't stand a chance. I deleted them in just a few hits. Between my big health pool and enormous damage, I was tearing through everything. I had never made it this far. Finally, the last boss appeared. It was a huge armored knight, fast, leading the horde. But thanks to my wind attack, I kept pushing him back. He never stood a chance. I did it. I won. This was definitely the best character I've played so far. I got Survivor rank C, unlocking new items and earning a ton of gold coins. Time to upgrade. This time, I maxed out health recovery and invested a bit more into maximum health. Thanks to the last match, I managed to unlock a new character, the Gravity Mage. This one had the lowest amount of health, but it had a high critical damage stat. That wasn't the only character I unlocked. I also got the Blade Master. This one was similar to the Knight, but with less health and defense. However, it had stronger attacks. Lastly, I unlocked the Assassin. It had the fastest walking speed of all characters, used poison in its attacks, and also had a high critical damage rate. So far, I had only won with the Knight and the Brute Fighter. I wanted to give the Gravity Mage a try. It was time for a new level, the Robo Zone. The Mage's ranged attack launched 3 projectiles. The first enemies in this level looked like small robotic turtles, not sure how to describe them. But then a stronger variant showed up. It was a spinning wheel with spikes. It was so fast that I wasn't able to evade them. It killed me. My character was really squishy. The early game was gonna be a nightmare. I gave it another shot, but once again, when the spinning wheels showed up, I went down. This level was impossible to beat with the mage. I decided to change my plans. I picked the Assassin, the character with the fastest walking speed. Its attack was insane. The swings were lightning fast. I was able to chop down trees with no effort. I also had throwable daggers, not bad at all. The only tricky thing about the Assassin was its short melee range. I needed to be really close to the enemies, so I focused on throwing daggers instead. Thanks to the high mobility, I could easily dodge the spinning wheels this time. But then I realized those things could also shoot projectiles at me, small energy balls. Nonetheless, I managed to survive. To see the next enemy, some sort of 2-legged robot with a drill in its beak. They were really fast. I couldn't distance myself from them. My speed didn't matter. Those things ended up killing me. The next character I tried was the Blade Master. It felt somewhat similar to the Assassin, but weaker in a way. The damage output was lower, The attack speed was slower, and the walk speed wasn't great. It took forever to kill anything. Once again, I couldn't even survive the spinning wheels. It became clear that some characters were better against specific enemies and levels. So I went all in and tried the brute fighter again, my favorite one. Interestingly, this time I wasn't able to stun the enemies. The robots had more resistance to stunning attacks. My usual strategy didn't work. Even the spinning wheels weren't affected by it. Still, I managed to hold out. My character had a good knockback, and I was able to push those weird two-legged robots, keeping them at bay for a while. Nonetheless, they kept coming, swarming me. Surrounded, I died once again. I spent some coins to upgrade my stunning power and knockback. Frustrated with the Robo-Zone level, I went back to Greenfield to try the Hyper Variant mode. The first thing I noticed was that when selecting a magic item, each card had a small label at the bottom. For example, grabbing a health potion also increased my attack speed by 3%. Not only that, at the top right corner of the screen, you can see HP plus 10%. This meant enemies also received buffs as time went on. Things would escalate more and more. Also, there were some monster cards I could collect by killing enemies. Combining all the elemental effects felt amazing. I could make explosions appear from thin air. My attacks were faster than ever. At one point, I was so powerful that I could just stand still and not move. The monsters couldn't even touch me. But that changed. The dinosaurs started launching themselves at me, along with those weird rabbit-looking creatures. I had to focus on dodging them. Nonetheless, I won, finishing my first Hyper Variant run. This granted me a lot of monster cards. Each one provided different bonuses, like increased physical attack, maximum health, and so on. In the menu, I could check the cards I had collected and even enable or disable their bonuses. Basically, it was a way to passively become stronger on top of the normal upgrades I could buy with coins. In the lower right corner, it seemed I could level it up by spending 10,000 coins, but I was nowhere near close. So I spent what I had on upgrading stunning power, knockback power, and a bit of attack speed too. For the next level, enemy enhancements would happen every 90 seconds. Enemies spawned faster and their health was buffed by 15%. Before continuing, I unlocked more characters. First, the Hammer Man. It was basically a knight wielding a huge hammer. He had the same maximum health, but his specialty was stunning and knockback. It was even stronger than the brute fighters. I also unlocked the Northern Warrior, which carried a massive axe. For my next run, I went with the Hammer Man and tried Hyper Variant level 2 in Greenfield. The attack was really slow, but it stunned every enemy around me. The swing radius of the hammer was huge. I could just stand still and stun everybody. To be honest, I had a hard time with this character. I wasn't able to get through the early game because of the slow attack speed and the low damage. I did my best, but ended up dying. Back with the Brute Fighter, I tried the Robo-Zone level one more time to see if I could finally beat it, but I wasn't ready. I died again. To be able to defeat the robots, I needed to get more upgrades, stronger characters, monster cards, anything. My plan was to grind the Hyper Variant modes of the past levels. That way, I would gain more passive bonuses and coins. Back to Greenfield. This time, I chose the Brute Fighter, and I killed it. The end of the match was quite crazy. I almost died because of the dinosaurs. Nonetheless, I won, unlocking more monster cards, coins, and, most importantly, Hyper Variant level 3. I decided to try the next match with the Brute Fighter, my favorite choice, and with good reason. I crushed it without problems, winning the whole thing and earning Survivor rank B. This made me unlock new items and monster cards. After upgrading my maximum health, knockback power, and attack speed, it was time for Hyper Variant level 4. That meant even more enemies. The power-ups were getting insane. At one point, I was literally able to stand still, attacking in front of me and behind me. In a huge area, there was so much happening on screen. All I had to do was move my mouse. Of course, I won that match too. Once I upgraded a few more things, it was time to tackle the final Hyper Variant level for Greenfield. The right side of the screen was packed with icons, showing enemy buffs and enchantments maxed out. Dinosaurs started to spawn at an insane speed. They were almost impossible to evade, but thanks to my upgrades, I managed to withstand the onslaught, fight my way through, and finish the match. I earned the achievement for completing Greenfield at max difficulty. Now, it was time to do the same thing for the Skeleton level. Using the coins I gathered, I upgraded a total of 50 abilities, getting another achievement for that. By now, I had unlocked even more characters: the Firecaster, the Mercenary, and lastly, the Car Fighter. The one that caught my attention the most was the Mercenary, so I picked him up for my next match. At this point, I had also unlocked the Endless mode for the Greenfield level. Here, the game never ends until I die, and trees can respawn infinitely, so I give it a try. The Mercenary reminded me of the Brute Fighter. His attacks were great for stunning enemies with ease. By playing Endless mode, I unlocked a new challenge called Double mode, where enemy quantity, health, attack, and experience are all doubled. I decided to try the Hyper Variant 5 in double mode using the Mercenary. I got another achievement just for attempting a run in this new mode. Already, I started leveling up fast. My sword's area was so large I could stand still and hit everything around me. I was keeping all enemies at bay. This was definitely my new favorite character. The reach of the sword was insane. I was holding off golems, birds, snails, everything. I picked up an artifact that allowed me to attack backwards. Now, my sword swings cover the full 360 degrees. I could literally just stand still and survive. I was a machine. I had collected so many artifacts, I couldn't even describe what was going on. I was attacking in every direction, deleting anything that came near. Golems, dinosaurs, rabbits, it didn't matter. Everything was deleted instantly. I could even destroy the rocks on the map. I managed to get an achievement for breaking every single tree and breakable object on the entire map. There was literally nothing left to destroy. It looked like something out of an anime. At one point, my computer was starting to lag. I was genuinely scared the game might crash, but it didn't. I got an achievement for performing more than 5 attacks in a single second. I was breaking the whole game. It was insane. I was even launching arrows with every single swing. The sound effects started glitching from the sheer amount of chaos. Lastly, I faced the 2 final bosses and defeated them. That was the craziest run ever, and my first win with the Mercenary. I reached Survivor rank A, unlocked new items, and collected a ton of monster cards. For the first time, I gathered over 20,000 coins in a single run. I could have used them to level up my monster card drop rate, but instead I focused on maxing out more abilities. Next up, I tried the Car Fighter. To keep progressing, I jumped into the Skeleton level in Hyper Variant mode. This character launched playing cards as an attack. His specialty was critical damage, so my main goal was to increase critical chance. Another way to help was by boosting my overall attack speed. This definitely made a difference. Multiplying the number of cards I threw was key. I also took an item so they would pass through multiple enemies. Even though the early game was rough, by the late I was unstoppable. Those wizard skeleton necromancers, I shredded them, deleted instantly by my cards. I was tearing through everything. I felt like a ninja, sprinting across the battlefield, throwing cards. I even killed the final boss in an instant. Another victory. The next character I wanted a victory with was the Assassin, tackling the Hyper Variant 2. I also focused on attack speed in this match. This run felt similar to my last one, but even faster. I was throwing multiple daggers and fireballs at ridiculous speed. I was untouchable. At one point, I discharged over 50 projectiles in a second, getting an achievement for it. The skeleton necromancers also didn't stand a chance. They were instantly deleted by my barrage of daggers and fireballs. It became hard to even see what was going on. The screen looked like fireworks. Then the final boss appeared, dying instantly once more. At this point, I had 41 out of the 60 achievements. The next character I wanted to win with was the Archer. I had a solid strategy now. Starting Hyper Variant 3, I focused on improving high attack speed, multiple projectiles, critical damage, and walking speed. If I focused on that, I was pretty much set. Another victory. For the next level, I took on the Firecaster. It could throw fireballs that burned enemies over time. It was passive, constant damage, so that was nice. It also had an explosion as a primary attack, but it didn't deal much damage. His main thing was the fireballs. In this run, I focused entirely on elemental damage. I prioritized fire, lightning, and poison. I also used a similar strategy to my previous runs. Multiple projectiles, more attack speed, and so on. That seemed to do the trick. I came through victorious. Finally, I reached the Hyper Variant 5 for the Skeleton stage. This one I tackled with the Hammerman. The build that I made let me stand completely still, getting hit without taking any damage. My health stayed full. I just stood there, untouched. My high defense build was doing all the work. The only reason I moved was just to kill the enemies faster. I didn't even need to dodge. By the end of the match, my attack area nearly covered the entire screen. It was insane. I got the victory and another achievement. The true challenge still remained. After grinding all those levels, getting all those upgrades, it was time to see if I could beat the Robo Zone stage. I chose the Spearman for this one. Things started good. I managed to survive around 6 minutes, where spiders started to chase me. The trick seemed to be ranged characters. By keeping distance and staying mobile, I was able to endure. If I got too close to those spinning wheels, it started shooting projectiles, so I needed a good amount of speed to dodge them safely. I managed to survive and fight a giant spider boss. I thought I had a chance. I was like a machine gun, launching spears at insane speed. New enemies started to show up. There were these larger robots throwing some energy, even spiky balls, but none of them stood a chance. They couldn't even get close to me, and so I reached the final boss, a dragon. Finally, I did it. I had completed the Robo Zone. With that, I bought the final upgrade. Every single ability was maxed out. Thanks to beating the level, I unlocked a new character, the Engineer. He carried a massive gun. It was time for the last level. I was able to fire electric energy balls as a ranged attack and trigger short-range explosions for melee. The enemies here were zombies, some slow, some fast. There were also reptile creatures. Nothing too crazy, but then a new enemy appeared. It had an area around it that buffed nearby monsters. From then on, things went south. When the mutant bats joined, their energy balls were really hard to dodge. It became worse and worse until it was impossible to survive. There were so many and I was too slow. I tried to run, but my health kept dropping. Somehow I kept surviving until the spiders were dozens, no, hundreds of them. There was no escape. I died. I needed to change things up, so I picked up the Blade Master. Right away, I noticed something I had missed before. The level had craters full of poison. I stepped on it and they hurt me. Thankfully, the Blade Master's mobility was amazing. The bats returned, but I was able to dodge their attacks and launch my swords at them. This character excelled in both melee and ranged combat. Not even the spiders were able to get to me. I swung so fast I could keep them at bay, freezing them in place. I survived further than ever before. Scorpions joined the fight. They launched stinger projectiles at me, seemed poisoned, and things didn't stop there. A new enemy joined, but it was hard to see because it moved so fast. It looked like a heavy zombie type, like an ogre. It was hard to see anything in the chaos, since I was freezing everything so quickly. By the end of the level, every single enemy type was on the field. Zombies, ogres, reptiles, spiders, everyone. I kept moving between them, dodging like I was dancing through a sea of death. Then, the final boss appeared. A demonic figure with horns and a magical staff, energy swirling around him. This was it. I won with the Blade Master. I've officially beaten every level. I almost reached another survivor rank, but I was still stuck at A. I needed to keep grinding for that S rank. While doing so, I had a few characters left to unlock. Thanks to completing the Poison Hell level, I was now able to play with the Dark Gunner. He wielded 2 pistols and had a high critical chance and critical damage. Only 2 characters remained to be unlocked. The Guardian, which required being hit 10,000 times, and the Archaeologist, which could only be unlocked by discovering all 180 items in the game. With the Dark Gunner selected, I returned to Robo Zone to try the Hyper Variant mode and discover more of these items. His main attack was shooting with the revolvers. I really enjoyed it. It was easy to build a strong setup. I focused on attack speed, critical chance, and mobility. He played a lot like the Assassin and the Archer, very high output characters. My shooting speed became insane as I progressed. My character was moving and firing so fast that the animation was almost breaking apart. The game felt like a bullet hell, and I was the boss. No enemy could escape. Finally, the dragon appeared. This time, it fired a massive laser from its mouth. After a good fight, I managed to kill it. With this, I reached Survivor rank S, the highest rank in the game. I also discovered more items, but still not enough to unlock the archaeologist. Before moving on, I spent my coins to level up my monster card drop level. Next, I played the Hyper Variant 2 mode as the Northern Warrior. This one was hard to get the hang of it at first. It was really slow, both in attack speed and walking speed. It didn't have much defense either. I ended up dying in this one. Still, I gave it another shot. This time, it was so much better, but things were not easy either. The robots were launching so many energy balls, and they were incredibly strong. One mistake and I'd die instantly. On top of that, they had a strong knockback. I had to carefully maneuver around them, circling slowly, picking them off bit by bit. Somehow I kept surviving and increased my attack area more and more. By the late game, my swings covered the entire screen. Then the final boss showed up. I stunned him, locked him in place, and with my massive swings, it was a quick takedown. Another victory. After this, I jumped on multiple matches, focusing on getting attacked 10,000 times by the monsters. To unlock the new character, I just stood there, taking advantage of my high defense and equipping items to boost my sustainability. I didn't lose any health at all. I just tanked everything. It took a while, but eventually I got the 10,000 hits I needed. Just like that, I finally unlocked the Guardian character. This one dual-wielded shields. It had the highest maximum health and defense of all characters. He also possessed a strong knockback and stunning power, so I gave him a shot. It was pretty funny watching him fight with two shields. He had a great health recovery too. I could literally just stand still and let the robots hit me while constantly regenerating to full health. Then the spinning wheels showed up, and that's when the problem started. I couldn't dodge the energy balls they fired, and my health plummeted. I ended up dying. At this point, the only character left to unlock was the archaeologist. To do that, I had to discover lots of items, but I wasn't sure exactly how to do so. I kept grinding through the hyper variant levels. I gave the Gravity Mage another try. The character had almost no defense and really low health. I ended up dying 5 minutes after. To get another achievement, I went into Endless mode with the Guardian. The challenge was to survive 30 minutes. This is where the character really shined. The defense was so high, nothing could damage me. No enemy mattered. I was an immovable barrier. By minute 18, the whole thing looked like it was starting to break apart. There were so many effects, so many chaos on screen. I hoped my PC wouldn't explode. For like 10 minutes straight, I just stared at the screen. I wasn't able to die. At one point, I think I killed the final boss instantly without even noticing. It just vanished. I reached the 30-minute mark with no problems. To actually finish the thing, I had to stop attacking entirely. Even then, it was incredibly difficult to die because of how much health and defense I had. I kept getting knocked around the map for a while until I finally collapsed. My journey to unlocking the last character continued. I needed to get those remaining items. I tried the Poison Hell level with the Guardian and it turned out to be interesting. Thanks to the build I chose, I gained experience from every hit. So the best strategy was to just stand there again, letting everything hit me, leveling up non-stop. Without lifting a finger. I felt so overpowered. One of my favorite rounds, definitely. But then the spiders showed up. They caught me completely off guard. My health dropped fast. My defense wasn't enough on its own anymore. I had to go all in and wipe them out. Thankfully, my attack had a massive area of effect, and I handled the spiders without much trouble. Things didn't get easier though. The scorpions were the real problem. My build had almost no movement speed, and the projectiles were almost impossible to dodge. I had to rely on stealing health from the enemies with every kill I made to stay alive. Eventually, my attack radius had grown so large that I didn't need to dodge anymore. I just stood still, stunning everything and unleashing massive energy waves. But the worst was about to arrive. The final boss. I was in serious trouble, surrounded, taking hits from all directions. My health kept dropping. I didn't know where to go. I picked up a car that reduced the boss's health, but the problem was that I barely did any damage. 9 points per hit. I felt hopeless. This was the longest boss fight I ever had. By minute 26, my health was critically low. I could lose at any moment. But then, somehow, I endured and ended up defeating it. After a couple of matches, only 7 items remained to unlock the archaeologists. I wasn't really sure how I was getting them, so I just kept grinding. But then, while playing with the card fighter, I figured out how item discovery worked. I actually needed to choose an item in the run to mark it as discovered. So for this attempt, I tried to pick up only the items I had never used before. After dying, only 4 items remained. Once I tried again, I finally did it. I got all the items and unlocked the last character, the archaeologist. It had a shovel as a weapon. His melee attack was a simple swing with it. Nothing too fancy, but the range was actually pretty solid. His ranged attack was throwing projectiles of mud. With this, I had officially unlocked every single character. Every level was completed, every ability fully upgraded. If you want to try the game yourself, check the link in the description. I honestly had a lot of fun with it. Thank you to Inwoods for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching. Hope to see you soon.